I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, angry protests at local school board meetings. Can it happen here in Montgomery County? Hogan defends ending unemployment benefits. Should Senator Schumer censure Joe Manchin? Happy Birthing Person Day. What's that all about? And congratulations, Andrew Friedson. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by education activist Cynthia Rubenstein and Secretary for the Montgomery County Federation of Republican Women, Laurie Halverson. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. The news has been filled lately with protests over social policies at various school board meetings. Andrew Gutman, a parent at the Tony Brearley School in Manhattan, withdrew his children from the school over the teaching of critical race theory and leaked a scathing letter to the media that drew national attention. Locally, a teacher that spoke out against transgender pronoun policy was fired by Loudoun County, promptly sued the county, and has been reinstated. Finally, the Washington Times has reported that President Biden's education department is buried under an avalanche of complaints about the funding of the 1619 project in public schools. So, Cynthia, there's a lot packed into the headlines these days, and parents are increasingly concerned about what is being taught to their adolescent children. But is there a central theme to all of these concerns?
Well, we're talking about the grappling that America continues to do around social, cultural issues. And on the one hand, the transgender pronoun issue, that's an issue about ensuring that children in transgender families and transgender people in a school and educational setting are affirmed and accepted. And I know that grates on this teacher's beliefs, but that is something that we have to figure out so that children are treated kindly and are affirmed and accepted. And this teacher, when he goes back in being reinstated, should remember that he is there not for his faith, but for children of all identities and families of all identities.
But Cynthia, has the whole issue been fully discussed, though?
No, it hasn't. And in fact, discussed is an important verb because it is not being discussed. It seems like it's two sides yelling at each other, not listening, and not trying to grapple with how people can live with the acceptance of people who are not like them and may not have the same belief system. And the 19 project, this is something else that has been blown up, but at the core, it's about understanding our history better. It's about acknowledging what's good, but it's also about understanding and revealing what has been bad and what has been ugly.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that we need to have an honest discussion about our historical past. The question is, there's a lot of questions about the veracity of the 1619 project and whether it has been fully vetted. So there's more to that than just whether or not it's a good thing to be able to discuss what our past is. But some of the premises of the 1619 project have been questioned. I want to go to Laurie, though, about also follow-up, because Loudoun County, like Montgomery County, has instituted an action plan to combat systemic racism. And in Loudoun County, it established a protocol about the wearing of certain flags and images deemed to be racist or hateful. Now, it was revealed a week ago that last summer, that the group Judicial Watch reports that the MCP curriculum at Pyle Middle School was teaching that conservatives are white supremacists and that educators labeled phrases like "Make America Great Again" as an example of white supremacy. Will there be a backlash to these policies that Montgomery County is now implementing, as we've seen in Loudoun County?
It takes one person to really start a movement in our county. Like Stephen Austin, for example, spoke out when there was issues with concern of busing in our county. So if one parent starts speaking up, then we're going to hear more from other parents. I think people are afraid to speak up. The Loudoun County policy was an anti-racism policy that was ludicrous. They were asking, the policy included ambassadors that included children of color, and they were supposed to have a bias reporting system. So if someone was wearing, I guess, possible, I don't know if it was the flag with the blue line or some certain flags, if they're, maybe it was the Confederate flag or something. If they were wearing something like that, then the children of color were supposed to report those other children. That is just ludicrous when you have anything where you're inserting someone of color. If you can put the word white in front of it, like if they had chosen white children to be ambassadors, there's no way that this would be considered fair. This was a biased policy, and parents certainly have the right to speak out on that. And if something like that happened in Montgomery County, I really hope that parents would speak up.
Well, but if Montgomery County adopts the critical race theory and is teaching that to its children, this is something that I don't think most parents are aware of, and I think there would be a great deal of pushback, because it stigmatizes white people just as African American people were stigmatized years ago.
Yeah, and I think it's about,
this needs to be fully debated.
Yeah, a lot of this is because there's interference again from the federal government. The U.S. Department of Education is providing a grant that includes ideas like the 1619 project, and that is interfering with how local school districts are teaching their curriculum.
So I want to give Cynthia the last word. We have to go to break. I want to give Cynthia the last word. Sorry, Laurie.
Yeah, I just want to talk about 16. I mean, the fixation on the 1619 project, I think, needs to be parked for a minute. But we do need to acknowledge that it would be better if we had learned about Reconstruction in US history. It would be better if we had a better examination of history of Native Americans. And the 1619 project is becoming a lightning rod, but we need to get through that and examine what's really important about understanding our history better and more fully.
Well, I'll reiterate what I said before, which is we need to examine our historical past. There's a difference between the 1619 project and critical race theory, which is teaching that white people are evil, and we can't support that.
I don't agree with you that it's
teaching. Look, that's the Merriam-Webster definition.
I think it's teaching that Americans have not always acted on the principles and values that the founders set. They have been contradictory.
That may very well be the 1619 project, Cynthia. It is not critical race theory.
Well, I disagree.
All right. Well, we'll have to explore this. It's a topic that we're going to take lots and lots of time, because this is going to be before us again and again over the next school year. Moving on to the Hogan administration's decision to end unemployment benefits. The Hogan administration has come under increasing criticism over the governor's decision to cut federal unemployment benefits. Laurie, Governor Hogan joined several other governors in deciding that the continued reliance on federal unemployment was hurting the state economy and its ability to rebound from the COVID recession. Did the governor make the right decision? Yes,
I think he made the right decision. I know there could be a few people that get caught in the crosshairs on this one, but I do believe that we're seeing a huge recovery now from coronavirus. There are less than 1% of people that are testing positive for the coronavirus. We have over 70% of people who've been vaccinated, fully vaccinated, which is really doing well compared to the rest of the nation. So our state is ready to get back to normal, and we need to get people back to work. There's too many people in the service industry that need workers, and they're not coming to work because they're getting paid more to stay at home. So we need to get people back into work, back to normal. And then there's a Chicago study too that also proved that that the unemployment payments were boosting spending, but they were not helping with the employment. So we need to get back to normal.
Well, but Cynthia, what Laurie just said is pretty much what Governor Hogan said, is that they need workers, and that this will be an incentive for people to go back to work. But the critics say that this is hurting the neediest, that those who can ill afford this are being hurt. Is this the right decision?
Well, people will be hurt. I think that, assuming that the only reason that people aren't applying for jobs and going back into the workforce is because they are getting that extra amount in unemployment, is not entirely correct. I think there are people who are still home with their kids. There are people who are not sure about workplace safety and things put in place to make it worth their while to go back to work right now. And yes, there may be some impact by having that extra amount of money every month. But the governor is giving up federal money that would go into people's pockets that would get plowed back into Maryland's economy. That's where that money would go.
And that federal money is our money that comes from our taxes. And we need to recognize that that's tax money that's going into their pockets.
And gets plowed right back into the economy.
So the real question is, does
2 months worth.
Does New York and California get our tax dollars? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer. I mean, I'm a free market guy. I believe that people who are given an incentive to work will work. It's better for society to have working people in the society. And I saw when President Clinton did welfare reform in the 90s, that the unemployment ranks went down because people looked for jobs. So I'm in favor of what the governor has done. I don't know if in the short term, response to this crisis that it will do much good, but I think the governor's trying to get us all back to normal as quickly as possible. When we come back from this short break, what should Senator Schumer do with the new maverick in the Senate, Senator Joe Manchin? Let me give you an answer. Jim Jeffords. Think about it. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Senator Joe Manchin's decision not to vote for a sweeping election reform bill, nor vote to get rid of the Senate filibuster rule, has progressive Democrats apoplectic. Many have argued that Senator Schumer should punish the Democratic senator from West Virginia. Cynthia, what would happen to Senator Joe Manchin and fellow Democrat renegade Senator Sinema from Arizona?
What should happen?
Yeah.
Well, Chuck Schumer understands that he is the senator from New York, which is a completely different context than being Joe Manchin from West Virginia, which is where Donald Trump won 70% of the vote. And the same for Sinema, who's from Arizona, which is one of those tipping point states. So Chuck Schumer understands their political context. Chuck Schumer ultimately doesn't want to lose a Democrat being a senator from West Virginia or Sinema from Arizona. So he has to balance the displeasure of the progressive wing with the realities of their situations. And they have to figure out a way for some level of compromise to move Joe Manchin, to make him more comfortable. And the same with Sinema.
Well, but doesn't that just put a massive roadblock in front of President Biden's agenda?
President Biden is a creature of the Senate and understands completely the situation that the Senate is in and Chuck Schumer is in.
So, Laurie, the one thing that Cynthia, didn't touched on or walked around lightly, I should say, tiptoed around lightly, was that in 2001, the Senate was split 50-50, just as it is now, until Senator Jim Jeffords of Vermont had an amazing epiphany. You'd think he was, Paul on the road to Damascus. He had this amazing epiphany, and he switched from the Republican Party to the Democrats, thereby giving the Democrats control of the Senate during the first 4 years of the Bush administration. How'd that work out for everybody?
Actually, Jim Jeffords served from 1989 to 2007, so he had a pretty long time in office. I read that he became an independent, but he caucused with the Democrats. And so what happened to him is, well, he didn't run again. And guess who took his place? Bernie Sanders. He tried to adapt, and it didn't work for him. And then he died in 2014 from Alzheimer's. So you change your party, you get in trouble, and you don't get reelected. But this is what happens.
But the bigger picture, though, is what happened to the Senate. That the Senate changed from being split 50-50. Where as in this case, Vice President Kamala Harris would have the deciding vote on many things, to 51-49, where the Republicans would have control over the Senate and would guarantee the death of the Biden administration agenda. So I think those that are advocating that the punishment of Senator Manchin ought to be cognizant of the fact that there could be a worse outcome if they go ahead and push too hard.
Well, I think Manchin is really representing what a lot of people in the nation who are Democrats are thinking, really, because I think really the most of Democrats are more to the middle than the far left people that are representing the Democrats in the House now.
Yeah, and I just want to point out the Virginia primaries, the Democratic primaries, showed that some of the candidates in the primaries who were on the lefter, more progressive side did not win in the primary. The more middle of the road and moderate candidates prevailed. And so I think that is a sign that Americans are hewing more to the middle than some members of Congress believe.
So you're saying that Terry McAuliffe is a moderate?
Excuse me.
Oh,
his last
sorry,
name is McAuliffe.
I misspoke. Is he a moderate?
He's a moderate. He's a moderate in
He's a chameleon. He'll be whatever he needs to be. We got to move on because I want to talk about this politically correct terminology that has just been announced. In the Biden administration's latest budget, they've eliminated the term maternal and have replaced it with birthing people when discussing funding for health care to address maternal mortality. What's your reaction to this, Laurie?
Well, first of all, I'm offended as a mom myself. I want to be referred to as a woman, as a female. However, I think, when these things like this happen, little things like this, it grows into other things. Do you know, I wonder, how much does it cost for the entire healthcare system, for example, to check, because I've been asked questions now when I fill out my healthcare forms and all that, what do I identify as, and what's my sexual identity, blah, 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 which was never asked those questions before. How much does that cost for the entire system to change, for the computer, for the computer system to change, to say all these things? It must cost millions upon millions of dollars to just, satisfy the LGBT community. I don't think these are questions that are necessary when such a tiny percentage of our population falls into the category. So, we do need to have respect for everyone. And our Constitution provides for that. I don't think we need all these extra things and to call people birthing people instead of, moms, females, whatever.
Well, for millennial, in every culture, we've had the term mother and mama.
Yes, the Bible. Yes, the Bible. Do we change the Bible
and
and call
it seems
it?
to me that we're trying to reinvent something new. Cynthia, does this make sense to you?
Well, when I first read the term, I thought they were talking about midwives. And it's confusing. It's not clear. So I don't think that term solves the problem that it intended to.
Well, what's the problem? What is the problem that it was intended to solve?
Well, I think it's intended to solve the problem of terminology for people who are non-binary and give birth.
But here's the irony, Cynthia, is that the purpose of this was introduced when discussing maternal mortality. The birthing people is not the right term.
No, it is not the right term. It's not the right term.
And it's one reason why Republicans get so angry, but there is a movement and it's happening right in front of our eyes, and we have to speak up when we see something like this happening. And when you look at the suicide rates of children, children are confused right now, and we are confusing them with all of this language.
Yeah, the flip side is that when children are not accepted for how they identify, that also is a mental health stress, and that contributes to child and youth suicide.
I do agree about that too. But I do think that we have to recognize that parents have rights for their children, and they're losing those rights through lots of legislation going through right now. Parents should have a say in what happens to their children and who they identify as. And it's being taken away from parents. Just in Maryland, there was legislation about healthcare, mental health care that children under 18 are allowed to get without the permission of their parents. This is not.
Well, we could do a whole show on this.
Yeah, this is a
there are
broader topic.
LGBTQ children
we have to go
who are kicked out of their families because of the way that they self-identify, who are abandoned by their families because of how they.
It's not an easy subject, and Cynthia,
it's not an easy subject.
You're right for bringing that out. Before we go to parting shots, I want to note that the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce has named Councilmember Andrew Friedson as its Legislator of the Year, which I think is a pretty incredible award for someone who's in their first term in office. Cynthia, your thoughts?
I think he is obviously a bright light on the county council. He has a great fiscal and business mind, and that mind is essential on the county council and needs to be represented. We need to have somebody who is savvy about business supports and the county economy and how to keep it or get it stronger.
Laurie?
Yeah, I think he's way above anyone else on the county council who would deserve it. And if you look at the prior people who got it, Mark Corman, Brian Feldman, for example, these again are people, legislators who have been working really more from the middle than from far left. And if you can, and I hope this is a lesson to, that far left legislators can see there's a benefit in working well with business. If you are working more in the middle, you get recognized for it.
Well, I'm glad both of you agreed that there should be more business people on as legislators and less activists. I think it's a wonderful.
I didn't say less activists. I just said.
I thought you did. I
it's good representation to have.
I must have misunderstood what you were implying, Cynthia.
Let's talk. I like balance. Balance.
We got to go to party shots. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now with parting shots, Laurie Halverson.
Yes, I want to recognize someone who passed away last week. His name's Vince DeCane, and he died on June 3rd. And he was a Montgomery County resident who we will miss greatly. He was a patriot, and I knew him, who spent time with helping the Montgomery County GOP. Didn't realize what other things he had done. He served under 3 presidents. He was a lawyer, and he led nuclear disarmament and trade negotiations for over 40 countries. He was also a special agent in the Army's counterintelligence, a fantastic human being who left behind a lovely wife, Joan, 4 children, and 10 grandchildren. A remarkable man.
Thanks, Laurie. Cynthia Rubenstein, your parting shot.
All right, well, I want to acknowledge all of the MCPS high school graduates who have been graduating over the last week, who have weathered a pandemic year and have proved themselves resilient and persistent and are poised to make us proud by either joining the workforce, going on for education certifications, and in someday they're going to support me in my old age. Which is way off, but
Yeah, way off. Let's hope for all of us. Oh my goodness. Now, I was going to just mention that in the end of July, the Washington Nationals are going to play the Baltimore Orioles up at Camden Yards, and it'll probably be just like the old days when the Senators and the Orioles played, where 2 last place teams got a chance to play one another. With that, I'm going to end. I want to thank the panel for being here each and every week. I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.